I was about to sing Welcome to the Jungle as my intro, but I realized my vocals are trash. So we're going to check out some unexplained mysteries and things found in the jungle. All right, let's go.
Hotel Costa Verde. For our first mysterious find, we head to Costa Rica. But first, if you think about certain post-apocalyptic movies or even just abandoned places, you'll know
That's exactly what it made me think, like a plane going down in the jungle and somebody just turned that idea, that tragic idea, into a hotel. I guess it works.
The phrase swallowed by nature. For those who don't know, it means that if humanity's not around long enough to beat back the nature and cause certain kinds of growing to stop, nature will then grow over, through, and around just about anything, and apparently that includes a hotel. Well, kind of. You see, within Costa Rica is the Hotel Costa Verde, and it's indeed swallowed up by a jungle, but that's by design. In fact, you'll even find a plane that was converted into a hotel room, despite the fact that the jungle has swallowed it as well. You could argue that the hotel's going for a unique look, and as a result, they have one of the most ironic locales around. Now, don't get me wrong, you'll be able to do all the sorts of things in hotels that you normally could, which includes going to a beach, eating in a nice restaurant, and more. It's just that the jungle's going to be there as well. Is this them going a bit too far in order to bring people in? Well, you'll have to judge that for yourself if you're able to go there, but apparently
that's the thing. Above all everything else, I'm still in the jungle. I'm in the jungle, bro. You can't remove that part of it. And for me, that's a no. Like I said on Shark Tank. And for that reason, I'm out.
Apparently it's a top-tier hotel, and what's wrong with having a little natural flavor as you relax?
Everywhere.
The obvious answer to the problem you might have with it would simply be, if you don't want to go to this hotel, no one's telling you you have to, but if you are a fan of the jungle, it's a perfect hotel for you. Before we go on, like this video, smash...
It definitely has some beautiful views, I'll say that.
Bell right now, or this centipede will crawl on your face when you're sleeping. Now it's time for the fancy topic. Take a look at this picture. It's an old World War II P-39 plane, one of many that were flown across the skies during that war from long ago, but the thing that makes it our fancy topic is that someone found it in the jungles of Indonesia. I bet you can just read the headline now, right? Man finds plane hidden in jungle, but when he looks inside, oh yes, there is a twist here, because when the man did look inside, there were not only documents the pilot was transporting, but there were the remains of the pilots themselves. Makes you wonder what happened to make them crash, but at least they were found eventually. What do you think of all this? As always, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below using the hashtag FancyTopic.
I would have thought they found the plane. I wouldn't have been expecting to see no bodies inside, bro. I'd have lost it, fam. Old documents, yeah, finding that, but bodies?
Number 19. Sigariya. Built in the 5th century, Sri Lanka's Sigariya fortress attracted the attention of British archaeologists in the 1800s who were amazed by its Leonine rock art and beautiful frescoes. A king had built the palace in the shape of a monumental lion on several acres of ground at the summit, which was intended to be a safeguard against his enemies. And as you might have guessed, it didn't exactly work out and the king was dethroned. A for effort, though. Due to how the palace and the entire area wasn't being kept up by those who had created it, the place did fall into a state of disarray, until eventually being swallowed up by the nearby forest.
Whoa.
But don't worry, the story doesn't end there. Rather, that's where the second phase of its life had begun, because while the world at large may not have known about it, the locals surely did, and they used their knowledge of the areas and the forest to reach it for various purposes, which included pilgrimage. As for those outside of the loop, they had to look for it the hard way. Based on texts and other reports, it would not be until the 19th century that it was rediscovered by the world at large and is now a UNESCO World Heritage Site. That way it can be much better preserved and the forests will never swallow it up again. There are even some who have gone so far as to label this the 8th wonder of the world. Would you happily give that designation to this place? Let me know all about it in the comments down below. Number 18. German base. Now we'll head back to World War II for a little bit, but this time around we're talking about the Axis powers, the antagonists of the war, and ones who almost brought Europe, Asia, and other regions of the world to its knees. Near the end of the war, when the Allied powers that were backed by the United States and Russia were able to turn the tides, the Germans, led of course by Adolf Hitler, were in trouble. So to try and escape and preserve the Third Reich in their own ways, they created rat lines to help funnel many of their numbers out of Europe and get them to South America. Yes, you no doubt have heard the stories of this, but they are true stories for the most part. That included how many of them smuggled weapons and riches into Argentina, which is why I'm talking about it now. Because along the border with Paraguay rises the Parque Teyuquera, a spot in Argentina where mysterious buildings now reside. If you care to take a guess at what those mysterious buildings are, well yes, they were the secret bases that were built by the Germans, and there's proof. The team who made this discovery found several.
Tell with them high walls, you could tell how it was the reason or the way it was built.
German coins with dates between 1938 and 1944, and there were also various German items found with symbols of the Third Reich etched into the walls. As one of the team would note, there's no other reason for the buildings to exist so far away from anyone other than to be secret bases for the Germans. And when you add to that the other buildings that were made and hid by Germans during the time period after World War II in Argentina, you get a picture of just how far they were willing to go in order to preserve the Reich. Number 17. Vietnamese Tarzan. The story of Tarzan is one that most know. After all, it's the story of a man who lived in the jungle and was raised by apes to basically become one of them. But what might surprise you is that there's technically a version of Tarzan that did exist in the real world, which included one that came from Vietnam, and his name was Ho Van Lang. To be clear though, unlike the Tarzan from the stories, Ho Van Lang didn't survive on his own, nor was he raised by gorillas. Instead, he was raised by his father. If you're confused, well, allow me to explain. His father, Ho Van Than, was a man who had a family in Vietnam. But then, in the Vietnam War, a bomb hit their home and killed half the family, and to get away from all of the madness, him and his father left and went into the jungle, and then stayed there for 41 years. They actually ended up growing corn in the jungle, and then hunted animals and ate plants in order to survive. They even made a hut that was 15 feet off the ground to ensure that predators could not easily get to them. The only reason that they left the jungle was because of the father's health, and when they re-emerged, they were wearing loincloths. Thus, the Vietnamese Tarzan moniker was given to them. After his father died, Ho Van Lang decided to live the remainder of his life in his home village, where his brother was revealed to be alive, and he formed a bond with him and his nephews. Sadly, he would later die at the age of 52 from lung cancer of all things, but some believe that the stresses of modern society had also played a factor in his death. Number 16.
Look at there. And we be watching these little survival shows and stuff like that. This dude would crush it on one of them shows, man. You know what I mean? Go out there and just be looking at everybody like I'm comfortable.
The Jesus Lizard.
Jesus Lizard.
The true name for this is the green basilisk lizard, and if you look at them, they do seem like a unique kind of lizard, but they don't scream Messiah complex. Now again, this is because the nickname comes from what they're able to do. In this case, it means to walk on water in their own way. Basilisk lizards are notable for their remarkable ability to scamper across water from the time that they're born. Both juvenile and adult lizards tend to use this unique trait in order to avoid predators. The mechanisms that allow these lizards to accomplish the task, however, remain generally unknown to researchers. Loosely speaking, when running, they can create an air cavity, which they use to push themselves forward with their feet, which is mostly seen in the adult basilisk lizards.
On the back of their head is what gives them the name basilisk.
Regardless of which one of them does it, it's quite remarkable. You'll likely know of other creatures such as water spiders that can walk on water in their own way, but this is a totally different kind of thing, and the fact that scientists haven't been able to figure it out just goes to show how much we don't know about our world. Oh, but very typically, scientists are trying to figure it out so that humans can learn to do it as well.
And lizards are aliens, bro. That's all. That's all it boils down to. Lizards are aliens. The fact that they can walk on water, I shouldn't have to explain myself at why they're aliens.
15. A humpback whale. Now we'll talk about an animal that was found in the jungle, but honestly didn't belong there. It was a humpback whale. And to be clear, before I go diving in, this wasn't found on a beach near a jungle. It was actually found in a set of mangroves within the Amazon rainforest.
Can't those things explode though? I can't remember, but I thought those things can explode.
This would be found in 2019 and was not a small whale at all. It was actually 36 feet in length and somehow ended up amongst the trees. Needless to say, it did shock quite a few people when they would discover it for themselves about 50 feet away from the nearby ocean. Quite a distance to move a large whale, wouldn't you say? An NGO that had been working on the island said that the animal may have already been dead when it was washed ashore during the high tides and came to rest within the mangroves, stating that it was just a puppy about a year old and not actually an adult whale. So yeah, if you didn't believe the story by this point, there are pictures to prove that it is real. Marine experts would say that they're still not sure how it landed there, but that they guess that the creature was floating close to the shore and the tide, which has been pretty considerable over the past few days, picked it up and threw it inland into the mangrove. Oh, but that's not the only mystery here, because what was the whale even doing on the north side of Brazil in February in the first place? That's not exactly a natural thing for this species, and so thus it becomes a very complex mystery indeed. Number 14. Fishing bulldog bat. Now, I'll just note that this name is one that doesn't feel right for a bat. After all, bats don't typically go fishing, and they're not often big enough to be considered like a bulldog. And yet, the fishing bulldog bat is its full name. There's a reason for this rather...
Joker scratch like a dog. Y'all saw that? You got a dog sit up and they scratch?
The fishing bulldog bat is its full name. There's a reason for this rather odd name, though. The first part of the name is, yes, these bats do indeed fish. In fact, they live near rivers, pools, and other bodies of water, just so that they can do that act. As for the bulldog name, well, if you look at some pictures of these bats up close, just try to tell me that they don't have a dog-like face.
Colonies are of two kinds.
That's what I thought, but don't worry, I couldn't believe it to begin with either. The process that this bat uses to catch fish is rather unique and bewildering. It skims close to the water's surface, sends out an echolocation pulse, and when it detects a ripple or a small object breaking the water's surface, it dips its feet into the water for a distance of 10 to 20 centimeters, and sometimes gaffs a small fish or even other prey item with its large feet and claws. If it does get a small meal, it will take it to go, finding a place to hang upside down so that it can then devour it. And if it gets a larger one like a fish, it will eat it in chunks over time.
Bats even eat upside down? I never knew that. I only thought they would, you know what I mean, rest or sleep or do that type of stuff. Even eat, that's gotta be challenging, right?
But make no mistake, they do eat all of what they catch. And what's more, sometimes they eat on their own or will even work in pairs during fishing trips. Either way, this is one unique bat. Number 13.
Definitely.
Rafflesia. Pop quiz, what's the largest flower in the world today? It really shouldn't be a hard question for you if you've been paying attention to this video. The answer? The Rafflesia, a large kind of parasitic plant that's not only known to be rather huge, but also gives off a smell that'll make you retch. Oh, and to be clear, it isn't one flower. It's actually a genus that contains 28 different species, one of which indeed does hold the title for the largest flowers in the world, but it may not be your typical descriptor when you think of largest, but it does pertain here. As for that line about making you retch, the Rafflesia flower is known to look and smell like rotting flesh. The foul odor does attract insects such as carrion flies, which then transport pollen from male to female flowers. So, rather mysteriously, they do that smell just to be able to survive. On one hand, it's clever, and on the other, it's disgusting. And as mentioned, these are a parasitic plant. They'll put themselves into the vines of others and then grow throughout them. That's the 5-petal flower that you see in the pictures and videos. But here's one last mystery for you. You'd think that such a plant would be like others that can be picked and grown in other regions, but in fact, they're known to only grow in Southeast Asian countries like Borneo and Malaysia, and attempts to grow them elsewhere have never been successful. Number 12. Congo's carbon bomb. The jungles of the Congo have revealed some interesting things over the years, but one creepy revelation was under their feet the entire time. Within the soil was a carbon bomb, or more accurately, a large deposit of carbon that had sunk into the earth itself. For the record, that's a bad thing, especially when you hear about how large it is. This carbon sink was about 50,000 square miles in size, which in context is larger than the country of England. There's more carbon beneath the ground in this section of swampland and jungle in the Congo than there's natural carbon above it, and that's not good. In round numbers, there's about 30 billion tons of carbon beneath the ground in the Congo jungle, which is 16 times larger than scientists expected to find when they began their research. But how could it happen? That's because of the ground itself. It's known as peatland, which is famous for stopping decomposition part of the way through and absorbing the carbon that's left over. Add to that the 11,000 years that the peatland has been around, and that adds up to 30 billion tons of carbon. Do we really have to explain to you now how this is a bomb? Well, I warned you, carbon is absolutely flammable and combustible, so if a match were ever to hit this carbon bomb, let's just say that the Congo would never look the same. Mainly because there's a massive 56,000 square mile crater where the carbon used to be. Number 11. The zombie fungus. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to present to you arguably the creepiest thing that you're ever going to see, the zombie fungus, also known as the genus of something I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce. Now the good news for you is that the fungus isn't one that can infect a human, at least that we know of, and it will not turn you into a zombie from the movies and television shows. But what it can do is infect...
Because y'all know how it always starts out. You hear about it someplace, and then all of a sudden you hear on the news one night, cases have been found in the U.S. New cases found. Then it's spread. Then it's everywhere. So let's be thankful that it's over there in the jungle.
The minds and bodies of ants and make them do their bidding. Yes, it's real and it is proven. And yes, it does get so much worse. The ant in question is infected when the spores of the fungus reach them, pierce the exoskeleton, and infect the mind. And it's there that the fungus enthralls the ant to do its bidding. But what is its bidding? Well, world domination, of course. I'm only kidding. Rather, the spores tell the ant to go to a spot on a leaf or a tall plant and then just wait there until it dies. But what is the purpose of this, you may ask? Well, the ant isn't moving, but the spores are growing inside of it. And when the ant dies, it then explodes, and it spreads the spores to more ants within the area, continuing the cycle of life and death. But wait, there's more. Scientists are not exactly sure how the fungi does this, and it's clear that it's evolved over time to do it, so that by that path of logic, they could evolve to take over other creatures. Sleep well tonight, boys and girls. Number 10. The pink dolphin.
See, that stuff makes me think, how could it spread? How could it get over there? And I would think possibly by water, maybe? I don't know. That would be the only way I would think. Or unless somebody flies over there and happens to somehow accidentally brings it back. Yeah, it's a lot of things out here we got to be worried about, y'all.
Are you still thinking about zombie fungus?
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you about something more lighthearted. How about a pink dolphin? And before you ask, yes, it is a real species, and it's one that's found in rivers in the Amazon. What's more, they're considered a rare and revered creature, as well as one that's apparently reveled by some. It's a vicious cycle, people.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
There are a lot of mysteries about this dolphin species, but funnily enough, it isn't the color that's one of them. They're born gray like most dolphins, but turn pink over time. And furthermore, how bright their pink is will not only determine the females that are attracted to them, but are determined by how they live. Also, despite how rare they may be, they have the largest bodies and brains of any freshwater dolphin, which you wouldn't typically think such a rare and colorful species would have, and And yet there it is, proving this dolphin is full of surprises as well as mysteries. Number 9. The Stone Spheres. We'll now talk about a mystery that you've more than likely heard of, the Stone Spheres of Costa Rica. On a very small island in Costa Rica, there are over 300 stones that have been tied to an ancient civilization known as the Disque. They are extinct, if you didn't know, but their mystery remains because of these stones, both large and small, depending on the one that you're looking at.
These are solid stone, and somehow they're perfectly round.
They're perfectly shaped round spheres, and nobody knows why they were made. They were sculpted by hammering boulders into a crude spherical shape using more dense rocks, and were then finished by polishing the stone's surface using sand. So at the very least, they did put in a lot of time and effort in order to make these spheres. Some believe that it's part of their culture to make them, but why make so many, and why in so many different sizes without any clear purpose? As for now, the world may never know. Number 8. The Boiling River. Now, I've already talked about the Amazon River in part, but now I'll talk about a key part of it, La Bamba, aka the Boiling River. This is a special part of the Amazon River that was eventually found by modern society after a quest, if you will, and the revelation at the end of that quest was actually shocking. The river has a very high temperature in its waters, from 45 degrees Celsius to nearly 100 degrees Celsius. That's
Those aren't jacuzzi temperatures, I'll tell you that.
about 113 degrees Fahrenheit to 212. In short, if you go into this river, you're actually going to boil. So that in and of itself is quite special, but that's not the mystery. The mystery is, how did it get that way? Now, I'm asking, how did these waters get so hot? The main theory is that it's geothermal in nature, but that's never been proven, and either way, the locals love using this tributary to cook their food and clean their clothing. Number 7. Peanut Head Bug. There you go with your names again, but at least this time it's a bit more accurate. The
Definitely.
peanut head bug is a very unique bug that actually has a lot of legends attached to it.
Tell me that's not an alien. Tell me that's not an alien, bro. That ain't from here.
Mainly because some have speculated it's a very deadly creature, but here's a hint. It's not, and it can't even bite you. Instead, like other insects, it uses the designs on its wings in order to confuse its enemies and make it think that it's much bigger than it actually is. And if all else fails, it'll emit a spray that's rather smelly. Sometimes an odd-looking bug is just an odd-looking bug, so it's a mystery why anyone thought that it was a killer in the first place.
What?
Number 6. Spider decoys. It's no mystery that spiders suck, but what's lost sometimes is just how devious they can be in order to get what they want. Case in point, a mysterious new species of spider would be discovered in Peru, and that species was known for a very mysterious trait: building decoys. It would go and build forms of spiders and then place them on a web so that the actual spider could control them like a puppeteer. Later on, video would be captured of this, and it's just plain freaky how a spider learned to do decoys like that. Was it something that it just evolved into, or that it learned from another creature?
Survival.
How does it even know what it looks like well enough to make those forms? These are the questions that are going to haunt my dreams tonight.
That's sheer survival. You'd be surprised at stuff you can come up with when you're back against the wall or you're trying to survive. Yeah.
Number 5. Amazon
It's
rings.
nothing.
The Amazon rainforest as a whole is full of mysteries, not the least of which is what all's inside there. But one mystery that stands out in most people's minds is the Amazon rings. There have been a ton of debate about these rings, not the least of which is who actually made them and what their purpose is. There are also wonders about them when they actually appeared in the Amazon, and whether or not they were there before the Amazon even came to be. A study probed that later theory and indicated that the ancient tribes of the area might have affected it so much more than anyone had realized. People had been affecting the global climate system through land use for not just the past 200 to 300 years, but actually for thousands of years, according to authorities. So obviously there are still mysteries there, but at the very least, we can admire the mystery and how grand in scale and scope that it is. Number 4. B-17E bomber.
Another one.
Now we're back to World War I, because as noted earlier, many planes would crash in the war, and many of them have been found in places like Papua New Guinea. One such plane was a B-17E bomber that was eventually taken from the country and
Any
brought back
bodies?
to Hawaii. This particular bomber crashed in 1942 and was in one of the first air attacks by the U.S. Army Air Force during the war. The bomber would be on a mission to bomb after a raid on ships at Japanese-occupied New Britain and was intercepted by Japanese fighters. But
I mean, they might as well turn that one into a hotel as well. At least this one is like out in the open and not high up in a tree somewhere.
there is a twist here. It didn't actually crash because of the damage that was done. It ran out of fuel. The crew would survive but had a 6-week journey to get back to safety. As for the plane itself, it would remain lost until discovered by helicopter in the 1970s. Number 3. Satanic leaf gecko. Now seriously, what's with all these names? We've already had a Jesus lizard, and now we have a satanic leaf gecko. To be fair, the name does live up to the hype in certain ways, mainly because if you look at this gecko in the right color scheme, they do indeed appear to be of demonic in nature. Furthermore, when fighting predators, they will suddenly widely open their mouths, emit loud cries, and show the reddish tongue and mucus to try and bite it. Devils indeed! The irony here, though, is that their bodies are actually designed to blend perfectly in with leaves of certain plants and trees, even having a tail with chunks missing to help seal the effect. So, thus like devils, they're actually clever indeed. Number 2.
I didn't even notice the tail at first, but they do got chunks missing to make it look like a leaf.
2.
That's crazy.
Lost City of Giants. Travel across this world and you'll hear stories of various giant species that once roamed the earth, and in Ecuador, a massive 260-foot tall by 260-foot wide structure made up of hundreds of two-tone blocks is believed to be by many proof of giants. In fact, it would be dubbed by an author to be the Lost City of Giants, mainly because of not only its large size and composition in terms of stones, but the tools that were said to have been found at the site that would imply giant hands had worked with them, if you will. Research has never proven anything definitive, but it is a wondrous structure, and if not giants making it, you have to wonder what or who did do it, though nature itself can be ruled out apparently. Number 1. City of the Monkey God. Well, that's not ominous at all. The White City of the Monkey God is a legendary and mythical place that's said to have been within Honduras and was glimpsed at by the Spanish when they were there, but then it was never seen again. The White City moniker was a reference to the pillars that were said to have existed, and many have tried to find it, but in 2015 a group of explorers believed that they did actually get to it, even getting a Science Channel documentary created as a result. In their research, they uncovered structures and artifacts that had been swallowed by the jungle, revealing secrets of an ancient indigenous culture that could be over 1,000 years old. So, is it really the City of the Monkey God? We honestly cannot say. It's not really conclusive, especially since many other lost civilizations, including more prominent ones in the regions, have had their cities swallowed by the jungle as well. But that doesn't mean it's not the White City. It just means that the mystery continues on. That's all from the realm of the jungle and what's been found within it. Were you surprised by any of the things that were indeed discovered in the jungles of the
I'm
world?
always surprised at the things you come across and see or hear about that lies and lurks in the jungle. You know what I mean? And there's so much more that we still have yet to find. So please don't find yourself crashing or just ending up stranded in the jungle anytime soon, bro. If you do like Tarzan did, man. Get you something, build you something 15 feet up high. Listen, I put that back in the memory decks, bro, just in case. I hope I never have to use it, but get you someplace, build it up high, and then you may have to live off the plants and stuff and everything like that. But hopefully you ain't got to do that. Y'all get at me in the comment section, man. Let me know what you thought of this video. It's crazy. Till next one, I'm gone.